bring in General Jack Keane, retired four-star general, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, Fox News senior strategic analyst, and Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. General, thank you so much for being here. You know, when you have to think back, you can never let October 7th out of your mind. You think back to the pathological killers that we're dealing with here. How do you deal with people like that?
Well, it's very challenging, certainly, and we had the same issue dealing with ISIS, diabolical, pathological killers, as you said, and, there's no reason or rationale in dealing with people like that are so barbaric and so morally corrupt. They have no moral compass whatsoever to guide them. But here's where we are. I mean, the Israelis knew that this day would come, certainly, because what made this attack so different than the Hamas attacks from the past is the focus on civilians. The civilians in the 22 communities that they attacked, there were a number of military bases, smaller ones in the area, but the focus was really on the civilians, and then the taking of large group of hostages, something they've never done before. So the Israelis knew what was the purpose of the hostages. At some point, to trade hostages, to buy time, to delay Israel's operation against Hamas, to slow it down, and also to impede it to a point where it cannot succeed. I don't think they knew for a minute, Hamas that is, that Israel's military aim here by the national leadership was to dismantle Hamas completely. That has never been a military aim in the past. So I think we'll also see other tranches here, again, slowing down the offensive. And then the final thing, I believe they'll hold on to hostages to protect the regime. So it actually lives on, and they'll be able to declare a victory against the Israelis.
Oh boy, that would be horrible. But at the same time, this ceasefire could have some very negative consequences for the Israelis as well. I understand one of the conditions might be to stop drones from looking at what Hamas might be doing in terms of regrouping, possibly even setting up sniper positions against IDF soldiers. I mean, there are a lot of risks in stopping the fighting right now under these conditions, aren't there?
Oh, yeah. Well, and certainly you started out by talking about Hamas and how bankrupt they are morally. So they'll do everything they can to cheat on this, the so-called no-fly zone that they want for 6 hours is the obvious. They want to be repositioning and do other things in terms of rearming, reorganizing, etc. During that time frame. The Israelis have comprehensive intelligence, and so do we. In terms of satellites and other things that we can put up at much higher altitude to give them some assistance in doing this.
So if I could just stop you for a second there.
That will likely be going on.
The point is that we are capable of sharing our intel that we might have maybe from satellites or some other source to replace that which they might miss in terms of those drones.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. Well, we've been sharing, first of all, there's two countries in the world where we share intel the most with. There's the UK, and the second one is Israel. And obviously, from day one of this conflict broken out, we've been giving them everything that's going to help them intel-wise. And I'm certain that we have increased our collection coverage to assist them. So, yes, that will be there to mitigate the loss of the coverage, certainly by drones, which is a valuable coverage, but also has its limitations.
Now, General, let's switch to Iran, which, of course, at the very least were the paymasters of Hamas, if they weren't the designers of October 7th itself. I mean, clearly, these as horrible and pathological as these murders were on October 7th, they were planned to be that. I mean, that was what the Hamas terrorists were trained to do. So I'm suspecting that Iran had a hand in that. But be that as it may, they're attacking our troops. We now have 66 attacks against our troops. Our counterattacks clearly are not dissuading them. When will they change? When will the administration change its tactics? Because it clearly isn't working.
Well, yeah, well, there's not agreement inside the administration on this, not at least reported in the open press, not agreement inside the White House and not agreement inside the Pentagon. There's obviously people who, like myself, would advocate for a stronger response based on the reality that Iran doesn't really care about its proxies all that much. It doesn't care if it loses rockets, missiles, and even people. They'll have more proxies to help. But this has been a relatively successful strategy for 43 years. That is, using proxies in foreign countries to drive the United States military presence out of the region and to weaken and destroy the state of Israel. 43 years they have been at this, and it has never resulted in a direct conflict with the Iranians, although two presidents have done something more than destroy proxies. They went after Iran, and those presidents came to the conclusion that in doing so, Iran would not expand to a war status because they would lose their regime if they fought a war with the United States. And the use of proxies for 43 years, David, argues that that's their mainstay. They don't want to be involved themselves. So, yes, I think we can step up the attack, step up the escalation, attack something that Iran values. Reagan hit oil platforms and IRGC bases when they hit our ships trying to escort Persian Gulf oil out. Trump hit the leader of the IRGC, Quds Force, Qasem Soleimani, because he was directing those attacks, much as the IRGC today. I favor going after the IRGC training center, IRGC headquarters or IRGC bases. There's other targets in Iran that they can come up with. I don't believe that the history teaches us this would involve a war with Iran, and that is what those who want the minimal are fearing, and I don't think it's supported by history.
But what's happening is our appeasement is getting them to step up, not only these attacks, but now you have the piracy. You know, they took over
I can hear you loud and clear.
The Houthis took over that ship, which was not an Israeli ship, by the way. It was a Japanese ship. It didn't have any Israelis on board, but they took that over. You also have a question, General, about the nuclear research that's going on in Iran. Because they have all this extra money, tens of billions of dollars, because Biden was not enforcing the sanctions against them, they've been spending a lot of it on their nuclear enrichment program, and they're stepping it up. We now understand they have enough uranium-enriched uranium, up to 60% purity. They're not far away from that 90% purity rate, which you need to make a bomb, right?
Yeah, let's just posture for a second what it would be like if Iran is permitted to get a bomb, which the initial JCPOA or nuclear strategy was going to do. Once the sunset clauses ran out, they could have as many bombs as they want. Let's assume they have nuclear weapons. Can you imagine how strong their proxies would be at that point, knowing full well that they're going to preserve their regime because they're going to threaten the use of a nuclear weapon if you attack Iran? And we're not going to have the leverage we have now because they don't have a nuclear weapon. That's why they want that nuclear weapon, because it empowers them in the region to use conventional means and people not to escalate against that conventional means for fear of nuclear escalation.
What should we do if, in fact, they get a nuke? Or if we get information that they're very close to it, that they're just a week or two away from it, should we actually go in there ourselves and bomb their facilities quickly?
Well, we should work very closely with the Israelis. They'll conduct massive espionage on the ground, self attacks, and the rest of it. And if they need our assistance in conducting a strike, it's not going to destroy the entire nuclear enterprise, but it will delay it, then we should do that. We should give them every means possible to succeed in that. We cannot let this regime have nuclear weapons for the reason I just stated.
Absolutely. General Keane, great to see you. Thank you for being here, sir. Appreciate it.